Could Auburn really have a top 3 defense in the SEC this year?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Darrell, Dapprich, Montgomery radio legend, hanging out with us on today's edition of the show, where, Darrell, you're ready to make the claim that Auburn has a top 3 defense, or could have a top 3 defense in the SEC in 2026 this season.
I am, and I typically don't get overhyped before a season on particular position groups, or, I can talk about records and that kind of thing. But look, everybody is focusing on this offense. And I get it. Offensive head coach, the Byron Brown thing, all the receivers, electric backfield. And I think this defense, which now has its coordinator for its 4th year in a row? 3rd year?
3rd.
Stability matters. Familiarity matters. The way he recruits. There are some things that I think this defense has gotten progressively better over the last couple of years that used to drive a lot of us crazy. Stupid penalties, getting off the field, 3rd down. That kind of got cleaned up. And I know that late in the year it got scorched a little bit. But I just think with the stability of DJ Durkin and some of these athletes that have decided to stay put on the defensive side of the ball, you didn't see a mass exodus like you did on the other side, although you lost your 2 starting corners, and we'll get to that in a second.
Corners and Blockton are the 2 you really felt.
Yes.
Or the 3 you really felt. Yeah.
But what happened is I like looking at these way too early depth charts. And there's a publication called Our Lads, who we've used in the past, who's pretty accurate. And what I found myself doing, Zach, when I looked through this, was contemplating, was going back and forth, was unsure about certain position groups. And not in a bad way, but in a depth way. Like, wait a minute, I can see this guy starting, but if he starts, that means this guy's not going to start. And how is this guy going to stay off the field? And as I went through this defensive lineup, it was constantly, I was seeing that, and I was starting to feel really, really good about this defense, about the familiarity, about playing under a guy like Durkin, who the players love, and some of these guys that came in from the portal, who I think people are sleeping on, especially at the corner position, that's got me thinking that this definitely could be a top 3 defense.
So a few notes on that. You mentioned the 3rd year of DJ Durkin. I'm looking through the roster, and I think there's only 2 guys that have been with him all 3 of those years. I think. And I think it's Caleb Harris and Sylvester Smith.
But there's a lot that I think that have been there 2 years, right? That have came back for their 2nd year this year.
Yeah, Dallas Walker is back. I mean, all the, your
Autry,
Crawford,
Pleasant,
Smith.
The safeties, the young safeties, Melendez, Riddick. Riddick's been there 3 years.
Riddick has been there 3 years. So I guess it's 3. You're right.
Yeah. Xavier Atkins. I'm telling you, Jared Smith.
Champ Anthony as well. There's 4. We're a 4.
Yeah.
We're a 4. Okay.
And probably all 4 of those guys will be penciled in.
Yeah, where you put Champ Anthony, I think, is super intriguing.
I've seen some as a safety. I've seen some as a nickel. So
where you put Riddick is also interesting.
I've seen some as a backup linebacker to Atkins. I've seen some as a starting buck. I've seen Sylvester Smith as a starting nickel. I've seen him as a starting. Yeah. See, this is why I'm getting excited about it. What does that show you? Versatility. It shows you flexibility. It shows you guys you can plug and play in different positions. If one guy goes down, next man up mentality. Jared Smith, who's a guy that we talked about, could play edge or fill in for what Keldrick Falk did last year and play defensive end. I mean, I just think that there is some guys that are getting slept on, and some guys that really started to emerge last year, and some guys that like a Riddick in his 3rd year, that it's time for the training wheels to come off and him to fly.
Yeah. Yeah, my biggest question on this defense is the defensive front. And I think the counter to that is, well, that's been a question going into off seasons before, and it ended up being fine. They were able to add guys in the spring portal to beef that up. Obviously, that's not possible now with the change to the calendar there, but
Dallas Walker coming back is equivalent to going out and getting one of the best guys you can get and add in the spring, in my opinion. And
yeah.
that's an addition that's like going out and getting the guy in the
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the way we talked about like Amaris Williams last year, where it's like doesn't count as a portal addition, but getting him back was pretty big. Yeah, Dallas Walker and Cody Sigler, I think, can be a solid tandem on the defensive front. And then there's just enough guys behind them where like, okay, a lot of these dudes are going to be in situations to take a major step forward, much like Jared Smith, but kind of talking more interior. And it makes me feel better there. I guess, and I actually did a show on this where I need to quit saying I'm concerned about the defensive line, and I'm more concerned with the pass rush, because that's actually what I mean is the pass rush element of this, because there's just so many assumptions. And we all love DJ Durkin's defense, and it's been good. No question about it. It puts a lot of strain on DBs, a lot. And I just talking with corners that have played in for DJ Durkin's system, you need that pass rush to get home. And so a lot of assumptions on Jared Smith, JJ Falk, Deshaun Womack, Nate Johnson, Joe Phillips.
Yeah.
Maybe Demarcus Riddick is part of that equation too.
When you talk about the interior defensive line, I also like Mathis and I like Autry as backups there.
Sure.
So, that's a big thing.
Can they rush the passer is my big question. And I'm going to ask that question until the season starts. Can they rush the passer?
I'll give you another reason why I think the defense can take a step forward and get in the top threes, because I think the offense is going to be better. And I think they're going to have not to be on the field as long. And I think they're going to be fresher. And I think that's going to equate to better production. I really do. I think an offense that is improved, that can move the ball and possesses the ball and scores points and takes some pressure off of you mentally to not have to keep your team in the game with a razor thin margin of error and the psychological wear and tear that has on a defense is going to be huge. It's going to be huge.
I also wonder if what's asked of them, I'm doing this take on the fly. Actually, let's do it in a moment. Is what Auburn is going to be asked to stop easier this year than it was last year? Let's jump into that on the fly in just a moment, right here on Locked on Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Indeed. Darrell, you run a company. You hire people all the time. You want reliable guys. You want people who are going to show up. But you also want to find those quality candidates without it taking forever, because also, you have a company to run. How important is that time?
Big time. We use it. We had a staff meeting yesterday. We have to fill a machinist position, and first thing we do is post it and on Indeed. And because it's the background checks, I don't have to sift through candidates that aren't going to be able to do the job. I can get right to who I want to interview, and that saves time. Yeah.
So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help your job get the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast, Indeed.com/podcast. Hiring, do it the right way with Indeed. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. The Winter Games are officially here. If you're anything like us, you're locking in to the events you only get to see on the biggest stage every 4 years. Biggest winter game sport for you is what?
Ice hockey.
That I should have known that. For a lot of people, it's curling. I like the snowboarding stuff, honestly. But yeah, they've got it all over at FanDuel, including, you can bet on individual events. You can do medal counts by country, whatever it might be. So if the Winter Games are on, and there's no better way to follow them with FanDuel. FanDuel, play your game. Thank you so much for making Locked on Auburn your first listen every single day. If you're like me and like listening to shows straight through without any interruptions, check out the Everydayer Club, lockedonauburn.supercast.com to sign up today. You can get an ad-free audio feed delivered every single day, as well as a link an invite to an exclusive Locked On Discord as well. Link in the episode description for more info there. Is what Auburn's defense is asked to stop this year easier than it was a year ago? Baylor, I think they're being asked to stop what I think will be as not as good of an offense from a year ago. You're nodding. You agree. I think Sawyer Robertson is better in that system than what I think DJ Lagway will be.
I agree 100%. I made.
They also lost a running back to somebody. Who did they lose the running back
to Auburn.
Oh,
yeah. They've weakened their backfield. I've said all along that I thought Robertson was one of the top 3 quarterbacks Auburn faced all year last year, and
he was good.
It kind of played out that way.
Southern Miss, whatever. Florida early, I think, is important. That we're getting them early before maybe they really get things going, because I do think they'll get better over the course of the season. Jay Crane said something similar on yesterday's show, so take that for what it's worth. Vanderbilt, no Diego Pavia. There's going to be people that act like he's replaceable. I don't think so. I would be shocked. I would be shocked, and of course that game's at home. At Tennessee is interesting because we don't know the status of Joey Aguilar.
Correct. And we wonder how much Golish knows Heupel with certain.
That was going to be a little personal for him.
I don't. Yeah, and I also just think I know they change up signs and they change up what they call out in terminology and all that. But he's got a really, really good grasp of what Tennessee runs offensively.
Yeah, if Aguilar plays, that's tough. If he's not eligible and he has to go to the draft. The way I think about that game changes dramatically. At Georgia, it's going to be tough. LSU at home. Lane Kiffin, you talk about that offense, like it's probably going to be good, but there are some questions about the health of their quarterback. Some assumptions are being made there. A lot of people are willing to just look past the Sam Leavitt foot injury, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. At Ole Miss, similar situation. As we're discussing this, Trinidad Chambliss is in court talking to, a judge and all of that. So that one's interesting. And it's either him or Deuce Knight, 2 good quarterbacks, one way more proven than the other. We'll see. Arkansas at home. I think their offense will be worse than a year ago. Right? Taylor Green was pretty good.
He was their whole offense. But we found ways to make him look very, very average last year.
And Mississippi State. We'll see. They kind of had like hot and cold moments there. Then Samford, then at Bama. That's going to be tough too. But I just think all in all, like it's not offensive juggernaut after offensive juggernaut that this defense is going to be asked to stop. That conversation changes a little bit if Aguilar and Chambliss are able to play.
And I maybe excuse my ignorance on this. Does Auburn play Texas next year?
No.
They do not. So they play neither Texas nor Oklahoma.
Correct.
They come back on the schedule next year. Okay, cool. Texas does. Yeah, that's a big break right there. You got to face Arch Manning either.
Yeah.
Huge. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Yeah.
We're at Texas in 2027.
There we go. Yep. Years are starting to run together.
No, that's cool. That's cool. So, yeah, it's not offensive juggernaut. The stretch of Tennessee, Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, it could be absolutely brutal. It could be.
Could.
There's also past to where we'll see. There's a lot of variance, potential variance there.
What you hope is if the defense does have a game where they give up a lot of points due to a proficient offense, that Auburn will finally have an offense that can score with somebody, that can match scores, that can get into a shootout, because it's going to happen. Even if you have a really, really good defense, if you have a really good year, there's going to be games you're going to have to win where your defense gives up points.
Yeah.
And, 2010 was an example. That 13's defense, I don't think was very good. But this could happen. Finally, Auburn can have an offense that, the other team scores 35, we're going to have to score 38, and we can do that. That's what you hope.
Man, if we win a game 38-35 this year, it's going to feel euphoric.
Well, that's how you know we're back. That's how you know Auburn's back when they win a game 38-35 like they used to.
Goodness gracious, that'd be fun. So, linebacker is an interesting position to me, not because it's absolutely loaded, but really because of how they're going to use Demarcus Riddick. We hinted at that a second ago as far as positional versatility. The more I look at the room, the more I kind of wonder about the upside of putting him as that traditional off-ball linebacker, opposed to what we saw him do more as a freshman, where it's like, we're going to put you on the edge, we're going to pin your ears back, and you go get the football. When you have guys like Melendez and Diaz, that I really like all the freshman linebackers, if I'm being honest with you. The more I look at the depth of that room, the more I think Riddick is needed more elsewhere.
I agree. And I think his skill set is such that it was kind of like, just go get ball. And his closing speed, I mentioned this so many times, is so elite. And you can't get an appreciation for it until you watch it. Television cameras and television frames of reference don't do it justice. When you're in the stadium and you watch how he closes in a 7-yard gap is unbelievable. I mean, it's like, oh, he's going to get the ball. He's on him. It's amazing how he closes, and he takes good angles now. If the quarterback tries to go to the sidelines, he's got speed to get to the side and do that as well and cut him off that way. So I'd just let him pin his ears back and go. And I just think he's such a freak of an athlete that, he can in an open field, I can see him running somebody down. I mean, there's just a lot of different ways you can use him.
And then just if any of these freshmen, we've got a nice run here of these freshman defenders kind of being so good that you've got to play them. Could Jaquez Wilkes, Shadarius Tootle, or Adam Balagoon Ali, I just have a feeling, Darrell, one of them is going to be too good to not play.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about Wilkes, and this actually has him on the depth chart is behind Atkins and Diaz. So I think, they're expecting him to play a little bit.
If he was the highest rated of the three.
Yeah, and he's a freak. Remember how he played? He played running back and couldn't get stopped. Could not get stopped at high level competition. I'd love to see him on the goal line. But anyway, I think he's got too much athletic skill and tool belt to not play and get some snaps. He's one that I would expect as a freshman.
And one of the several great things about Durkin is he's going to play the best guys. Yeah. Last year, that was Melendez and Diaz. They were too good to keep off the field. And we'll see if it's Wilkes, Tootle, or, Balagoon Ali. Regardless, it's going to be one of those guys, which will make sense. So, all right, I want to pivot to the defensive back room because somebody's going to have to be elite in this defense. And there's a few guys where it could be them. Lot to replace. That's next, right here, Unlocked on Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Mazda. Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen, I'll go with Tahad Pettiford for this week's moving the game forward for the offense that he found earlier in the week. Sadly, it was not enough to win against Vanderbilt, but Tahad Pettiford has put that headband on, Darrell, and we've started to see him score a little bit more than what we've seen, during times this year. We put the same passion into every model. Highlights make the real. What it takes to get there is what makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Alumni Hall. We love Alumni Hall. Wouldn't buy any Auburn gear unless it was from Alumni Hall. Got this hoodie from Alumni Hall. And I just strongly encourage everyone, it doesn't matter if you're shopping for yourself or for a spouse or for a friend, a child, a pet, they've got everything at Alumni Hall, Darrell.
And the fact that you can do it online, besides they got, some great locations, but send them as gifts, just order it and ship it to an address. Really, really clutch, great place, and very convenient to do all your shopping.
Yep, alumnihall.com, or go check them out in Auburn or Opelika. Let them know that Locked On Auburn sent you. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. When you talk about corner, I do think there's a lot of questions. I think the answers are on the roster, but there are going to be some intense battles for reps both throughout spring, summer, and fall for who are those outside corners. And some of it is, do you go with what could be labeled as the known commodity? I think I have a little bit of pushback on that. Or do you go with the guys you brought in? Andre Jordan Jr. from UCLA, Shamar Arnoux from FSU. I think those are probably your favorites to start at outside corner. Darrell, but there are plenty of guys coming back as well.
Yeah, I'll push back a little bit on that. 2 of the 3 projected depth charts I saw had Pleasant starting over Arnoux. 2 of the 3. I agree with that. I think Jordan is a stud, and he was really coming into his own at UCLA and really underutilized. I really like him, and I see Pleasant as the known commodity. And I know, what are you talking about? You've only seen a few games. I get it, but in the few games that I saw, we had an opportunity to play. He did make plays, and so another year of development under Durkin in his system. I think he takes that next step, and he's your guy at the other corner with Arnoux and Woodby, who are 2 really nice options as depth pieces there, being able to help out and be backups.
Yeah, I've talked about this several times. Like, I don't love, unless you're just an elite guy, I don't love having your starting main return guy at corner, but people have done it before. There's certainly exceptions to the rule. Can he be one of those exceptions? We'll see. We'll see. Some of this, I think, comes from an NIL point of view. Like, we see this in the pros, where if a guy gets that big, massive contract, there's a little bit of like, I feel like we have to play him. Just reading in between the lines, like, I think Shamar Arnoux got that. I think Shamar Arnoux has been, they've invested in making sure that he's going to be ready to go pretty early and often. Wasn't in a good situation last year at FSU. And so that's part of my pushback with that. Regardless, you've got 4 guys that I think are going to be competing for these 2 spots, which is what we talked about with these corners last year. And so regardless of who your starting 2 are, Andre Jordan, Rayshawn Pleasant, Shamar Arnoux, and Blake Woodby, those are probably your top 4 corners. We'll see what they do with Champ Anthony. I don't think they'll keep him outside, but they could. We'll see. We'll see.
That's why last year it was clear cut. There was 2, but then you held your breath if one of those 2 went down. This year, with there being 4, I'm not as nervous, and this is why I think this defense has a chance to be better. If it is Arnoux and Jordan, and one of them, God forbid, gets hurt or has to take plays off, you've got Pleasant, who's been there, who's got experience to step in. You've got Woodby, who's coming into his own. There's a lot of people that are high on Scrap Richardson, which is, that I've seen. And some of the depth charts I saw had him as the 5th corner rotating.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, you've got well,
who else would the 5th corner be? Hold on.
Devin Williams.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you start getting down that far, the depth chart.
Or Gavin Jenkins is older.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's a sophomore. Scrap and Devin are redshirt freshmen, so I guess they're the same age.
Yeah, I just think the athleticism may be there, and again, when you're talking about your 5th,
I don't. Yeah, right? Yeah, once you get to that point, for sure. I just don't know how much of I don't really see him as like a outside corner.
Scrap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Athletic. Played receiver or
can fly.
Corner. Yeah, I think he's going to be a guy that's going to really benefit from the spring, and we'll see what happens.
Do you think he's part of it this year?
Yes.
You think Scrap plays a role this year?
A role, not you were going to. I think you caught yourself saying a good amount, and I'm going to say no, but I think he plays some snaps just to get some breathers.
10 snaps a game.
Yes.
On defense, not special teams.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, maybe 7 or 8 snaps on defense, and then he'll play a lot on special teams because of his speed.
Who plays more total snaps, Kamari Todd or Scrap Richardson? On defensive snaps.
Scrap.
Who plays more total snaps on defense this year, Scrap Richardson or Gavin Jenkins? We don't talk about Gavin Jenkins a bunch. For folks who don't know, he's the corner that came from USF.
Right, and it was a slot guy, right?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Let me confirm that.
Yeah.
Let me confirm that. I think he was an outside guy. Who would you say?
Gavin, because Golish knows him better. He's, you know what I'm saying? He's more familiar with him, trust him, played for him. So you're going to go with the known commodity there.
Do you think that matters on the defensive side of the ball?
I do.
I mean, clearly not as much on offense, but do you think it matters?
Yeah, I know that it's Durkin, and Durkin's the one, but Durkin also, I think, had a hand in getting guys like Fred Gaskins and Jenkins. So yeah, I think that matters.
So Jenkins played in 5 games last year, 33 snaps, and most of them were outside.
Okay. He'll be your 5th corner then.
Okay.
Yep.
I think I agree with that. I like Devin Williams too. I want to hear more about, his recovery, from injury last year. So all in all, there's dudes. There's plenty of dudes on this roster, which is great. Darrell, Dapprich, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
With you on right here on Locked on Auburn, Wednesdays and Fridays, wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. And then we'll be going live tomorrow night after the Arkansas game, Arkansas-Auburn basketball game from Fayetteville, and checking that game out as well.
Nowhere I would rather be than going live with you on Valentine's Day.
I apologize that I wasn't able to do it, last week after the Vanderbilt.
Glad you're feeling better. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you guys next time. This has been Locked on Auburn.